Welcome back, my little secret society and werewolves. You're all invited to
What to Watch Now,
where we talk about what's streaming on Netflix right now. And today we're talking about The Order. Oh my god, this is going to be a very passionate one. I promise you that. Basically, this looked like your run-of-the-mill, shitty CW-esque show from the really corny taglines in the trailer like, oh, how did I get you? You got me as your tutor. I guess I'm just lucky then. And it just seemed convoluted and stupid and corny, and I was going to just completely skip it. I wasn't even sure if it was going to trend or not. It is, which is kind of funny because you're never sure nowadays with these type of shows if they're trending because people genuinely like it, or it's just kind of like, I don't know, you can't look away from a car crash type thing. Now, the only reason I checked this out is because of my main man, Dan. Now, Dan is a lovely person on Twitter who has said some nice things about the podcast. Really appreciate it, Dan. And he actually has sent in requests before. I have a Twitter. You can follow it. It's in the description below. And feel free to go follow me. And I am always welcoming requests. Like, I want to watch what you guys want me to watch. And the last time he made a request was about doing the Umbrella Academy, but just based on purely, like, predictions and theories. So I did a whole nother episode, and that was a blast to do. So I was like, oh, I'm coming back from being sick. If you have any requests, shoot them. And he was like, you should check out The Order. And I was like, really? And he even admitted himself. This is what he said. He said, check out The Order on Netflix. Somewhat cheesy, mediocre acting, but oddly addictive and fills my need for binge-worthy sci-fi show. And I was like, Dan, perfectly. You've pitched it perfectly to me. I'm going in knowing it's a shit show, but I don't know. I mean, like, that's why some of these shows do really well, like the Vampire Diaries and stuff. It's like maybe a good portion of its audience knows it's absolutely trash. But who gives a shit? If you're having a fun time, whatever. Let me go into this. Dan was not wrong. He did not disappoint. I very much appreciated this request and had a fucking blast watching it. But I would say the only negative thing was it left me so heated after finishing the first season. I was so mad. I was like storming and fuming about it for like a good 2 hours afterwards. Like, it genuinely pissed me off to my core. So just going forward with that, just know that this review is not going to be as organized as my other reviews, where I kind of am just like, really pinpointing certain, like, this is the plot. This is a theory. This is going to be like a mashup. I'm going to do the best I can to not be too disorganized, but just a forewarning, basically. Okay, so going into this, you need to know that the writing is pretty bad. I would not say it's bad in like a boring sense. Like, it's more so bad it's good. Like, an iconic line was like, I'm like 10 minutes into watching the first episode and it's super fast paced. That's kind of like the motto when it comes to Netflix directing nowadays. And it's going really fast paced, and the grandpa comes into the room of his grandson, our main character Jack, and he's just like, wakey, wakey, hands off Snakey. And that's supposed to be like, oh, haha, Pops. That's not weird or anything. Or when he's just casually talking to his son, being like, oh, I'm so proud of you. You're going to college. You're following in your mother's footsteps. And then he just abruptly turns to what I can only explain is like a beautiful mind-esque bulletin board with pictures and strings connecting different images. And he puts up 2 middle fingers and he goes, fuck you. You killed my daughter. And you're left being like, so do you say this every morning after breakfast? Like, is this a part of the routine? Like, who are you saying this out loud to yourself? Do you think someone's listening? That's what I'm talking about. You're going to have a really fun time laughing at the dialogue. And I would say one of the strengths of the show, which would have, okay, so I think this show would have died and people would have not even finished the season if it wasn't so fast-paced. A mistake with some of the later, or I guess you could say earlier trashy shows from like maybe 5-10 years ago is like, okay, so example, I gave the example of Vampire Diaries earlier. So I had heard people being like, oh, it's my guilty pleasure. So I was like, oh, I love a good guilty pleasure. I'll go check it out. but I just could not get into it. It was too much like pausing and voguing and too much long pauses and like lots of conversations about nothing. It was incredibly boring, and I mean, you should be guilty. It's a shitty show. No, hey, I'm just kidding. If you love that show, like whatever, more power to you. But this show has a lot happening. Every episode has a purpose. Things are occurring, happening, and there's not a lot of time wasted. In fact, it moves so quickly that, like, again, referencing the first episode, you're going to have, like, in the first 20 minutes, it'd be like, you get introduced to him, this crazy background plot, then he gets kidnapped by another society, then he's, like, before you know it, he's giving a weird, I guess unprovoked in a way, tour of the school, even though he's like a freshman and new to the school, and like in any other real life circumstance that would never happen. And then he's like fighting someone on the tour. This is all within like the first 15 minutes. I mean, it's nuts. It's quite a whirlwind from beginning to end. But it is still bad writing. Yeah, I'm just putting that out. I'm just letting you know what you're walking into. Okay. So now we're going to get into the whole plot. For its problems, I have to say there were some great creative ideas there. Except, okay, can I explain this? Okay, so there's like a group of people. This is something I love as you like get older as a person and you like experience the world. You know how it's like fun the first time you like try out a new sport? I used to rock climb. Like, I used to climb both. I bouldered, which means I did no roping, and I used to climb up mountains and shit like that, which is, like, super fun. On the other regard, on a personal note, I did fall 20 feet and, like, really hurt myself, so, like, that's why I stopped doing it. It's terrifying. But what I'm saying is, trying new things is fun. Woo! One of the things that I love learning about is how many weird occupations are out there, and I kind of want to know them all. Oh, maybe I'll do that one. Maybe I'll go on like a hunting spree, try to find all the weird occupations and expose all of them in like a book. I'm sure they wouldn't be happy about that. I'm not trying to like hate on any of these people and their occupations, but like what I'm about to say, probably they wouldn't be the most happiest about. Not all of them be talking about. Okay. So you can have a job as a young adult fiction writer, and I'm not talking about like your Scott Westerfield type people. I'm talking about people who are trying to make a living promoting through self-publishing. And the reason why they're doing through self-publishing, I'm going to go on a bit of a rant, but it's a fucking podcast. Enjoy yourself. Okay, so when you go to publish a book, you, especially if you're a first-time writer and you don't have any platform, you're just a person who wants to write, if you are lucky and they are like, we want to pay you for your book, we want to publish your book, they will only maybe pay you a max of maybe $5,000 for the entire book. Yeah, this is real. And they'll only pay you half up front and then half after it's gone through the like process of publishing. So you might only get $2,500 up front, and then it won't be a year and a half until they actually publish your book and like it goes through the ringer. And then once it's published, you have to do all the self-promoting. As much as they will say that they are a publishing warehouse, they will not most likely do anything to promote your book, especially if you don't have any platform. You're not like a celebrity with a name or anything like that. And so if your numbers don't do well, which is kind of like asking a lot considering you're working your ass off for $5,000. I mean, people can make more money in 2 months at like, 2 or 3 months more, a part-time job. And if you don't do well enough in that first book, they won't publish another book. So that's kind of like the way publishing works. So self-publishing, I hate that people shit on it, because I guess it's because anyone can self-publish. There is a lot of bad content out there, but there's also a lot of really great writers, because in a second, you can put your book up out online and you could have a very small following. Like, you don't need to be anywhere near as large as these other celebrities. If you have some sort of small following on Twitter, Facebook, whatever, and you have a couple people buying the book, you are getting a larger payout, because again, you would need to sell a very large amount of copies of your professionally published book And you would deserve to get more than $5,000, but the amount they would expect you to sell and the amount you're getting paid out is very disproportionate. If you were doing self-publishing, you're getting like 70%, because like I think Amazon only takes either it's like 30 or 35%. So you're getting this bulk amount of money for your book. Even if you wanted to sell it for really cheap to kind of guarantee more sales, you're still getting way more money. So you could have a much smaller audience and actually make a realistic living as a self-published author. So I'm giving you like a background on all this. So because this is the case, it becomes less about your skill in writing and your creative idea and more what is the market that's going to make the most money. If you're not going to do something like writing like a book about dog, like how to train your dog, or something kind of self-helpy, things that sell really well, and if you want to kind of do fiction, a lot of people, if you're smart, have a sort of proverbial list they have to tack off. And on this proverbial list, it's things like the antagonist is secretly related to you. You have like a best friend and they betray you in the third act. And I'm not kidding you. Google this. A bunch of pretty well-known self-published authors have full-on admitted and made this list and been like, when I write a book, I've written like 20 or 30 books, and this is my list. I make sure it encompasses all of these things. These are the things people, as much as it might be annoying or tiresome, these are the things that help them sell books, so they stick to this formula and they try to disguise it as something new every book. The Order, and the reason why I gave that whole background story, is like it ticked so many boxes. I had to start fucking like laughing out loud multiple times because I was like, oh my god, I'm not even going to successfully remember all of them, but it was just like one insane young adult novel cliche after the other, where it was the point where it was like, all right, who else wants to get into this mess with these people? So this is the plot line of The Order. We got our main character, Jack. I don't remember his fucking last name. Who gives a shit? Tiny rip-off Quentin from The Magicians, and we'll get back to that. Hold on to that idea. He is actually quite handsome. Big head and all. He's a very handsome guy. And he's talking to his mom's dead grave. She's dead. So check, mom died. And he's in check a jean jacket and jean pants. Just want to point that out. Who the fuck wears that outfit? They always are like, the sexy bad boy. I'm like, I mean, I've seen sexy bad boys in real life. Aren't most of them wearing like Adidas tracksuits? I mean, I could be not hip or anything, but you get what I'm saying. So, check, all jean outfit. He basically is wanting to get into this Belgrove Academy, and initially there's some problems where he gets a letter basically being like, you're not accepted. But then some magic is done, and he is accepted. Which, by the way, right then and there, I'm like, Jack, what the... Like, I couldn't stop laughing because... right in front of him, in front of his eyes, his acceptance letter, or his letter turns into an acceptance letter. Like, he sees magically the letters move around, and he even reacts, and he's like, what the hell? But when he sees he's accepted, he's not like, I'm having a heart attack, magic's real, what the fuck? He's just like, whoa, okay, cool, I'm accepted. It's such a weird, like I said, it's a lot of abruptness when it comes to The Order. So he's accepted into this college. He lives with his grandfather, who was his mother's father. The reason why he specifically wants to go to college is he wants to get into, it's like the Hermetic Order of the Blue Rose. We're just going to be calling it the Blue Rose from then on. It's kind of a skull and bones secret society of this college. But it's not just your run-of-the-mill, a lot of the reason why people want to get into secret societies is it's an elitist thing. Not just to have bragging rights about it, but more so sometimes like Skull and Bones, which is a real secret society, it will create really great connections. It's its own fraternity, sorority-oriented thing. So when you are an adult, it's even more important than having a college degree. You have these connections, basically. So he wants to get into this secret society, but his grandfather wants him to get into it too. And keep in mind, this is like a super secret society where it's like, it's a myth it even exists. Like, it supposedly doesn't exist. The reason why both of them want him to get into the secret society is because his mother was once in the society, and the leader of the society is Jack's father. Now, this guy doesn't know Jack exists, but his father, Edward, the leader of this society, had a hand in somehow doing something that had his mother then commit suicide. So he is the reason why she's dead. So check, father's evil, check, father caused mother's death. Check. We're going through the adult novel checklist, so to speak. And that's very motivating. So right then and there, honestly, if the whole show was only that's kind of like enough as is. Like, you don't even need anything deeper magically. But this is where we get to our next part. The Order, or the Blue Rose Order, the reason why it's this, like, really secret society, what their shit is more special. In fact, actually, in the very beginning, Jack gets kidnapped by another little secret society fraternity, and he doesn't even want to join it. So it turns out there's tons of secret societies on this particular campus. But the reason why this one's even more secretive and more sought after is because they actually know magic. Now, this is when, like I said, I compliment certain ideas. As much as I love magic and witches, I feel like it's like an addiction or something. Like, if I go so many weeks without watching something magical and cool looking, like someone's eyes flare up from being a werewolf or cast a spell, I don't know, I have a meltdown or something, because I always notice, like, a couple weeks will go by and I'll just look up an old movie that it has magic and I'll start watching it without, like, it's like, I gotta scratch that itch. But as much as I love people just straight up being like, I'm a witch, I do magic, they never say they are casters, sorcerers, anything. It's never described as that. Because in this world, magic is a word and a sigil. Anyone can do it. And they have that secret information. So if anyone joins, anyone has the capabilities of doing this magic. You could understand why, if that word got out, you would want to be a part of the society. So when he initially starts being a part of the society, it's just like, cool, I'm learning about magic. That's cool. But my main target is, I fucking hate my dad. He doesn't know I'm existing and that I'm coming for him. And I'm coming for him. And he also meets Alyssa, his love interest. In my opinion, secret antagonist. She's not, but, like, in my opinion, secret antagonist. Alyssa, that he falls in love with. So that's, like, the general idea. Also, before we're gonna motherfucking talk about Alyssa. This is gonna be a little bit of a longer podcast, so just ride with me here. Just want to put this out there because some people are fucking crazy, and I just need to put this out there. The actress that plays Alyssa, please do not send her any hate or negative messages. She did her job. She was fine. She didn't write her character. She's probably a totally lovely person. But I fucking hated Alyssa. Like, roaring, passionate hate. And I usually never just, like someone can be annoying, but, like, I was raging over her existence as a character. So just putting that out there. Just leave the actual actress alone. She's probably a lovely person. We're talking about the character here. Anyway. So if that's not enough, the whole, hey, I'm a secret society, magic, I'm going to kill my father. He ends up getting, and this is where, again, the world building is really interesting. He ends up becoming a werewolf. But instead of it being, I know this is so crazy and weird, because, like, I guess this show's extra. Of course he has to be and a werewolf. Well, the way werewolves work in this show is, instead of it being someone scratched by another werewolf, and then usually the way the lore tends to work is, like, if you kill the person who scratched you, you're no longer a werewolf, that type of thing. No. Werewolves there's, like, a group of them, and they're kind of almost spirits rather than actual tangible werewolves. Maybe they were at one point, who knows? They probably were. And they are considered knights of this particular order. And there's, like, I don't know, there's maybe like 8 of them. There's not a lot of werewolves. But they exist through a hide. They're stripped fur. And they usually hang out in their little designated hide box, which is so weird to think about. And when they sense a spirit that is going to encompass a goal of theirs, they will attach themselves, which literally means, and this is where it gets kind of violent, they will crawl into their body, their skin. So when Jack or any of these members become a werewolf, it's like the werewolf is a separate being, like, they have their own personality, and they kind of have to obviously make sure they're aligning up with their werewolf person, but they are at the same time almost like the same person. So sometimes it's one and the same of Jack talking to his werewolf within him and being like, help me out, dude, come show your powers, and just sometimes encompassing and being a werewolf himself. So pretty cool idea, because the humans that wear the werewolves are the champions, but the actual werewolf themselves are immortal and they are considered knights. Now, the reason why these werewolves are important is they're not your just run-of-the-mill werewolves where, like, in other young adult type novel type shit, it's like, okay, so you're a werewolf and you're vampires and you just don't like each other. No. This is actually very important. So the Order, in their magic conducting, whenever they conduct magic, the werewolves can, like, legitimately hear it. It's like ringing. It hurts. It aggravates. It can set off their just becoming a werewolf if they're not more in control of their connection. And the reason why this is important is because the magic that the Order, whatever they do, everything comes at kind of like a price. So they do not shy away from, like, human sacrifice. Sometimes you could be conducting a spell and your arm could snap in half, and not just because maybe you did the magic incorrectly, but that spell involved taking and hurting you. So often they will try to focus their spells in a negative way that hurts other people, but either way, there's something that has to pay for this spell getting done. And that becomes very problematic when, like, because magic can be done in any way, like I said, you can do magic where it's more just like maybe you get really bad acne from conducting certain spells. They most likely don't want to get hurt, so they focus their spells and don't really give a shit if they hurt civilians. So the werewolves obviously consider that extremely negative forever, and they try to prevent that. Now, they're not just going willy-nilly and murdering anyone in the Order, which is smart because in the beginning, they are seen as invisible. Like, the Order doesn't even know the werewolves exist, so they're very smart because there's not that many werewolves, and it would be dumb if they just constantly were murdering everyone and quickly got sought out, especially when these people have abilities to, send fire out of their hands, whatever. So they more just only kill the people that are causing the most damage, and they're just kind of managing the magic, so to speak, and being aware if anything more nefarious or bigger deal is going to happen. Also, another reason why this is kind of interesting, why they wouldn't want to be so found out and secretive, is so when they die, their hide returns back to their box. And that's actually a great, cool world building way. The members will be like, okay, so let's say a member is missing because they've been kidnapped or something, and they're worried. They're like, did blank die? They'll go look in the box, and if the hide hasn't returned, that means they're still alive, the hide is still connected to them, because the hide's not going to just ditch you for no reason, basically. And the hide does not just pick anyone willy-nilly. Even Silverback, who chose Jack, our main character, had been dormant for like 50 years. So the werewolves themselves don't even make these decisions very lightly. If you were to find out they were werewolves and you killed all of their champions, yes, the werewolf spirits themselves would like live and be okay and go back to their box, but who knows when they would find the next person they felt compatible with, and then be able to, and who knows what the Order would do in that time and kind of getting out of control chaotic wise. So it's really smart plan. I'm just putting that out there in general. Love that. Okay, so we got Jack's a werewolf, check. Jack can do magic, check. There's consequences doing magic, check. Mother's dead because of father, check. Dad's, of course, evil antagonist society, check. But if it doesn't even get weirder, Alyssa, the person that Jack is in love with or develops these feelings for very quickly and feels an attraction to, she, like, thinks Edward, his father, which she doesn't know for the bulk of the season, is like the bee's knees. And often it gets really fucking creepy. I kept waiting the whole season for some weird affair to begin. It felt so sexual and creepy and inappropriate. It really deeply bothered me. So she kind of in a weird way, not only blindly trusts, but kind of like has a crush on her boyfriend's father. Like, that is not even a box that fucking exists in any young adult novel, because even they have fucking standards. But this show, no standards. Throw it out the window. I wanted to say, on an interrupted note, remember how I was like, oh, Alyssa, probably totally nice person, leave her alone, the actual actress? Now, I'm not saying go attack. I don't condone that in the least. I'm putting that out there. But the actor who played Edward creeped me the fuck out. Like, on a level that felt a little too realistic in person. He felt like a real-life predator. If they wanted to use him for a creepy predator-esque kind of HBO show, he would have been perfect, because it was a little too believable. It really genuinely skeeved me out. I did not like Edward in the fucking least. He creeped me out so hardcore with his soft touching and talking. And honestly, I'm very appreciative they didn't go in this angle, but he just felt so sexual towards Alyssa. I kept thinking he was going to seduce her. And honestly, I think if things hadn't gotten interrupted and stuff like that, it could have gone in that direction, which is so creepy because, like, on one hand, like, Alyssa's supposed to probably be, like, 20, I'm imagining her character is. That happens. Many girls are unfortunately seduced by an older guy. That happens. You know, people are young and naive and tricked. But like, why is that necessary in this very PG-13 show? And I really do say it's PG-13 because even though there's like the violence of like a heart being ripped out by a werewolf, not only do we not see that, but when it comes to Alyssa and Jack, quote unquote, hooking up, straight up, in most young adult type shows, it's like you see kissing, and maybe they, like, jump off the bed or something. There's some type of insinuation of, like, they did it, right? And they don't show it, but it's like, guess what, guys? They had sex. This shit's real. They had, like, in a maybe 10-minute point, multiple, like, way too long angles of them making out, where it was like, okay, this was kind of, like, just realistically teenagery, corny, cute. And at one point, Jack even leans back and he's like, this is amazing. I love this so much. That alone is hilarious. I just want to add, I don't know anyone who just randomly interrupts their own makeout session to, like, comment on it, but love the self-awareness. But either way, that's all that happens. He never, like, goes to second base, anything. It's quite tame. I mean, Twilight went fucking farther than that shit. You know what I mean? And then you have this very realistic, like, grooming predatorial angle that I was like, how is this show benefiting from this? No one wants to experience this. No one's liking the show more for this angle. So that was a weird plot point. Okay, now this is when we start to get into kind of the end point. I'll talk about the big ending twist that pissed everyone off, but I want to talk about, I do want to mention this. This is like, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself, but this show is totally a ripoff of The Magicians, and it makes me fucking laugh so hard. Because on one hand, I don't mind that Netflix tends to do that nowadays. I kind of think it's a genius, shady plot point move that I kind of support. Because when they rip off something and they're like, hey, did you like this? Well, we're making this. Because on one hand, like, example, I hated Groundhog Day. I think that's a dumb film. But Russian Doll is cosmically, metaphysically, and philosophically genius and amazing and takes an idea to a whole nother level. So sometimes Netflix improves it upon an idea. Other times it's like, well, there's room for everyone. Like, I love certain angles of, like, maybe a witch or something, and they will give me, if they give me a version of being like, hey, if you like this show, we have this show, it doesn't mean you have to stop watching or it's going to outflank or kind of run out of business the original content they're ripping off. You just get to the joy of enjoying more of that content, especially if you don't have cable and you're like, I'm aware that show exists, it sounds cool, but I don't have cable, I have internet and Netflix. So that's like the beauty of it. It kind of goes with the whole Netflix philosophy, so to speak. So I don't mind that shit, but it got kind of weird when they had actual characters. Example, I don't even remember his name. I'm just going to call him Todd. Straight up, they had Todd, the actor who played the character Todd from The Magicians, in this. And he even was very Todd-esque. And they even had one of the necromancer. I can't remember what pivotal point she played, but the necromancer in this was also in The Magicians. Like, they had multiple people straight up from The Magicians. And then, like, I don't know, didn't you feel like Hamish was basically Elliot? Jack was, in a way, very Quentin. I mean, I even felt weird when the girl who was in... I'm so sorry, I just don't have the IMDb in front of me. She was the girl who was kind of, like, supposed to be the ripoff Margot. I felt weird that they were so mimicking these character plot points. That just kind of felt full-on rippy-offy. And I'm not even sitting here being like, that's not right, they ripped that off. I mean, that's, like, a given, too. I'm more talking about, like, Margot is, like, an amazing character on The Magicians. Like, she's a really funny, dark character and very sarcastic. And then she ended up being, like, a really badass hero babe. And that includes everybody. Like, they did so much with their characters. It's kind of like you got the shittier version of them. So I felt like that in general was weird, especially at points when they were just around drinking in a, like, sort of, I guess you'd call it sorority fraternity type, like a house, but they were the only 4 members in the house. That's what I'm talking about. That was very Magicians-esque and stuff. But, I mean, let's be real, the Order and the Magicians is nothing alike, so I'm just throwing that in there. I thought that was really funny. And it only came to my mind when I was looking on Twitter and someone was like, Jack is a rip-off Quentin. And I was like, huh? And then I was watching the show and I was like, oh my god, you're right! So, getting to towards the end of the big plot point, there's 2 major things that happen in the ending that we want to get to. And they're all kind of, like, combined. Okay. Also, speaking of, like, the Magicians, Katharine Isabelle, who played Vera Stone, fucking loved Vera Stone. Just, like, on a personal level, loved Vera Stone. She was, for me, from The Magicians, a rip-off Marina. Loved the Hedge Witch, you know what I'm talking about? Amazing. But fun fact about Katharine, the actress, I was like, you look so familiar. I love your acting here, and I for sure loved you in something else. And then it hit me. She played Ava in Supernatural. And I'm like, I have episodes, I'm going through the whole Supernatural thing. You should totally come join and hang out. It's like a super fun show to talk about. You totally join the party. But get excited when Ava shows up in Supernatural, because now I can reference her in this. I was like so pumped to see her again as an actress. I was like, oh my god, I love you! Anyway. Okay, so this is one of the biggest things that sent me, like, off the hill, raging, seeing, blackout rage. Okay, so Alyssa is in the Order, and she basically has a metaphorical boner for Edward. Edward, the leader, is trying to get these sections of a book. And when he gets these sections of a book and he puts them all together, he will be in a position where he will have ultimate power. Where, you know how when you do magic, you're able to then when you do magic, you're going to have punishment in some way from it. If you have the book, no consequences, no having to repay in some way. You would just have, like, crazy ultimate power. It'd be even easier to do. Now, he doesn't really say this to her. He just says, like, well, we could benefit the world. I thought it was going to build it to something more secretive, but no, he really just wants power. That's, like, just kind of very simple. But he's, again, this is why I loved Vera Stone. I love that she constantly, the entire way, was like, guys, isn't this kind of bullshit? Like, she was calling him out constantly. I didn't blame her, though, when she was constantly put back into her place, and she was like, well, shit, I don't want to lose my job. I worked really hard to get this job. But our girl, Alyssa, isn't really aware of that, so she's just kind of blanketly following along as far as she's concerned. He's so cool. He's so amazing. She's so excited to be, like, his kind of private tutor, quote-unquote. But as time is going on, it's, like, very, very, very clear to, like, people who aren't even in the Order that Edward is, like, very clearly evil. Like, there's no way to view it any other way. He is for sure evil. And Alyssa just cannot see that. Now, Jack has his flaws for sure. He for sure thought way more with his penis than he would and was with, like, really ultimately truly being on the side of the werewolves. But again, you understood his perspective. He didn't ask to be a werewolf. He didn't ask to be a knight. He doesn't even care about the fucking order. He just cares about killing his dad. He kind of got caught up in this mess. But for the most part, he does always try to make the right decision. He doesn't try actively to put anyone in danger. And he does do whatever he can to benefit all, even though for sure most of the season his motivation, despite all reason not to, he wants to protect Alyssa. So sometimes he makes a decision, like, you know, sometimes you have to make a decision that's better for the majority than the minor type thing. It's like, dude, let Alyssa go. She's showing you her true colors. And he would still do the thing that more actively helped Alyssa and made it more troublesome for everyone else. And I guess his argument would probably be like, well, no one died. It's like, yeah, but like Hamish got stabbed. Like, things were not great, Jack. This wasn't a great idea. But things started to change, and I really appreciated that. Because again, as much as the writing was funny and dialogue and bad in that way, people are pretty consistent, and you understand people's motivations. You understand why Hamish is, like, trying to listen to Jack, because Jack starts to share, hey, guess what? You never look into this magic stuff. Do you know why you do what you do as a werewolf? And they found solutions to stopping magic without just murdering everyone. And you could understand why Hamish would want to hear out Jack's reasoning. But but obviously it got to a point where it's like, Hamish was like, dude, we've been doing your plan and we're kind of helping the order get closer to their goal. Like, we're calling you out. It's not happening anymore. You can understand people's reasoning from following blindly to changing their opinion. And Jack's a great example. And even Alyssa's a great example. So Jack basically at some point has to separate from his hide. Silverback, don't worry about that. That's just, who gives a shit? Silverback's like a part of the book. You don't need to fucking worry about it. But he ends up needing a new hide, a new werewolf. So he ends up conjoining himself with a new werewolf named Midnight. Keep in mind, this is like another background story in case you need to know this information. There's only so many werewolves, maybe there are like 8 different werewolves, but not all of them are out at the same time. There's no rule against it, it's just like if they didn't find someone to attach to, they didn't attach to them. Anyways, so Midnight is known to sacrifice himself, right? Silverback was the most strong, so I'm assuming as a personality, again, you kind of fuse a little bit personality-wise with these werewolves. I imagine Silverback, being the strongest werewolf, was aware to not be so brash, because he was so strong he probably could successfully murder even his peers. So he probably had a certain level-headedness, which is why he was always trying to, and it goes with Jack's type of philosophy, of being like, he was trying to make all the hard but rational decisions to get closer to the order and get this ultimate problem solved with not only his dad, but this huge problem with the magic potentially becoming a really big problem for just general civilians in the world. So that's someone who has to make a lot of tough decisions. That makes sense why Jack, like, was making the decisions he was making for so long, and a little bit of blind love with Alyssa. But once he joins with Midnight, I loved him joined with Midnight. I'm very happy he's now joined with Midnight. Midnight's whole thing was he always sacrificed himself. So we have to get into kind of the mindset of, like, what would be that type of personality if you were willing to sacrifice yourself? If you were willing to do that, you are aware of how important a mission is, and you will do anything, because he's not just going to throw himself in blindly and die to save one small battle. He's going to do whatever he can, push anything out of the way to get to the ultimate solution, because his death needs to kind of be timed accordingly. So he's very passionate. He is not making decisions blindly, but he's making more of the extreme decisions that Silverback won't. Like, he understands just generally the safety of the whole, rather than, well, I wanted the safety of the whole, but I also want magic, and I also want, like, he only understands the safety. So he's more emotional. He for sure is more brash. I don't think he's so emotional to just, like, hurt anyone blindly, but if you're, like, in his way, he's gonna let you know. So I loved that moment when Alyssa was being, like, an annoying pain in the ass and he got angry and, like, bent the tire. Like I said, I have such a hard-on for, like, anything that's, like, magical or super strength. I'm like, ooh, look, he bent the tire. That's so cool. I wish I could do that. And he's even like, I'm sorry, Midnight's emotional. But this is where it gets great. During the whole season, it's shown time and time again, Edward's a raging psycho. And you will be screaming at your monitor, whatever you're watching it on your phone or computer. After so many episodes, you're like, bitch, Alyssa, are you serious? Like, how are you still so blindly following this man who's shown you nothing but evil? And your only arguments ever like, well, the Order's not evil. It's like, honey, you just sacrificed 5 people. Well, no, they were going to die anyways. So now they're going to die a worse disease you are seeing that you're only just helping one person and that person's in the Order. Like, her rationale was insane. It was like on a whole nother crazy person level. Like, this is not a person you can see any longer as a rational person. And it gets to a point where, so Edward has a son, right? And that's another son that he's aware of. The kid's, like, very young. He's, like, probably, like, 10 or something. I don't know. And he's still unaware that his first son is technically Jack. So part of the spell involves his first son, quote unquote, dying. That's pretty fucking horrible, especially considering this has been his lifelong goal. That means he, like, literally loved and raised and protected this boy only to kind of groom him to eventually be slaughtered for sacrifice. That's, like, next level fucking psycho. And they kind of are at this point where they've been, because of Alyssa's decisions to protect Edward and thwart a lot of serious things, and it puts them in a position where they're like, okay, well, the only thing we can really do is just allow the son to be sacrificed. We could have done other things way beforehand, but we're just going to have to allow him to die. We could have fixed this before, Alyssa, just want to point that out again. But they're like, if we allow him to sacrifice his son, he doesn't know he has another son, and his spell will ultimately not work. So in the end, it will benefit everyone. And she's sitting there trying to make the argument of, like, oh no, well, don't let that happen. Like, we can't let the son die. Come on. And as she's whining about this, and you can understand, like, she doesn't want an innocent kid die, she's still defending that Edward's a good person. So you hear the irrationality of what I'm saying, like how you just would be screaming at this monitor. I liked when, as Jack is embodying Midnight, or Midnight is embodying him, he starts to just kind of like, oh yeah, I'm okay. But when she turns, his face goes very serious. And he isn't planning to hurt her or do anything, but he starts to, at this point, lie to her and do whatever he wants. And this is when things actually successfully work out. Keep in mind, even at this point when she's, like, trying to defend Edward, she's been actively told by the necromancer in multiple different futuristic outcomes, no matter how time changes, you were always his demise. I see it. I can see you being the reason. And even to the very bitter end, she's still kind of weirdly protecting Edward and doesn't understand her mistakes. It's fucking insane. It will rage you out intensely. I'm trying not to ramble too on about that. You get the idea, but it's pretty bad. But so I appreciated when Jack then became Midnight, because shit started to get done and there was a lot of clever choices made. The little boy doesn't get sacrificed, which is nice. But at the very end, it seems, and this is where, like, kind of the crazy bullshit goes on towards the end. So our girl Alyssa is at the end with Edward. I think she's kind of, like, trapped there. Who gives a shit? And they're trying to help the ultimate plan show up. They've successfully removed the little boy, so they've, again, learned how to better solve a situation without just blindly killing anyone. A little boy was saved, which is great. And I wonder how he'll traumatically in the long run deal with the fact that his dad was going to murder him. Good luck with the rest of your life, kid. We saved you, but we can't save you from your mental crippling fears from now on. So what it appears is that our boy comes to self-sacrifice himself. And Alyssa's like, no. It's like, honey, there were literally 10 different time periods in the last 4 episodes we could have stopped this. this is all we have left. He's gonna have to sacrifice himself so you can live, because in the end, he's still trying to make the best choice for you. So he sacrifices himself, or so we think, because he even admits to Edward, like, I'm your first son. By the way, how hilariously anticlimactic what that was. It was like a big deal. He even revealed himself to his friends that he was the son of this guy. It's this huge, like, secret. And then when the dad finds out, he's like, okay, whatever, just get on the table. Like, boom, we're done. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Thought that was so funny. Anyway, he goes on the table to be sacrificed, and the dad, like, stabs him to be sacrificed. Then we learn he has reawakened in the very beginning. All you need to know was there was a golem. And golems are kind of like moving, living voodoo dolls, so to speak, that can be controlled by their creator. They can take different appearances, but ultimately when they're, like, attacking or whatever, they are made technically out of clay. I loved Clay the Golem. He was so funny to me. Initially, he is the roommate of Jack, and he's so funny, and I thought it was really creative. Again, these were the Order has some really creative ideas. He would go on these tangents that were very existential, which made complete sense, because if you're kind of like a lifeless being that is only controlled by other people, you don't even have the ability to have your own dreams and desires, it would make sense that you would, like, he at some point is talking to Jack and he's like, how do we know we even really exist? I mean, it's like, technically, when he's pulled apart from his body as a clay figure, he no longer exists, so how does he ever really exist technically? Thought that was really fun and creative. And I loved the joke of when he realizes, oh, my roommate's name is Clay, and this golem's name's Clay. Oh, Clay's the clay golem. He brings back Clay, and Clay's hilarious. Clay's got a great, hilarious surfer way of speaking. He's honestly my, like, favorite character of the whole show. Like, fuck everyone, love Clay. And Clay has been disguised to look like Jack. So what happens is Edward stabs someone he thinks is Jack, which means that he doesn't complete the ritual. He ends up fading away into the book. And I loved that part when he stabs him incorrectly, so the thing doesn't go well, and then Jack goes over and hugs Alyssa, and they're kind of like, hey, hi, and it's like, Edward's like 10 feet over from you. Maybe don't reunite at this exact dangerous moment. And that's how ultimately they win. You get what I'm saying. That's, like, the big thing. Now, this is where it gets super pissy-offy. This is when the rage comes out for everyone, and me included. Okay, so they're kind of talking and hanging out by the grandfather's grave. Spoiler, grandfather, who was a raging fucking psycho. Holy shit, he was not likable as a character. I loved the actor's, like, over dramatic acting. He was great. But, like, as a person you're supposed to root for in the family, he sometimes was, like, even more evil and intense than Edward. So he's dead, and our guy Jack is kind of having, like, another monologue like he did in the beginning at both his grandfather and now his mom's grave. And as he's hanging out there and having this connection and, like, talking to them, he's, like, talking to Alyssa, and they're having a conversation about, like, well, what are we going to do now? Because, yes, the ultimate danger is over with, but the reality is, like, she's still in the Order. The Order still represents something pretty evil, honestly. There's no way they can have magic and it doesn't hurt people and hurt society. And I honestly, like, as much as I would love to have magical abilities, if it was, like, endangering people the way they have it, I for sure would be very against it. I'd be more on the werewolf side, but that's just me. I don't want people to die. And she's making an argument of being like, well, you're a werewolf. You can't be in the Order too, or, like, you have to pick a side, which is like, bitch, what the fuck are you talking about? This entire time, he technically was in the Order and still helped your peers. Like, what are you talking about picking sides? Technically, he's been very beneficial towards both. He could actively kill your members, and he doesn't. And he makes it clear, being like, no, I'm going to be both. Like, I'm still a werewolf, and I still have my rights and believe in them. But I also kind of am in this Order, and I'm, like, a part of this. I think, ultimately, if it had been a long-term game plan, he would have tried to figure out ways to have magic that don't hurt people. You know what I mean? That could have been something they worked on. But no. bullshit ensues. There is this white powder that they use to erase people's memories in the Order. And they have to do that when someone leaves the Order, that type of thing. And they're in the middle, like, she even says, I love you, and he's like, I love you too. Like, it's great. He's been committed to the cause from day one. By the way, this is like a minor, I'm sorry I'm interrupting at a pivotal point, but like, did it not crack you up when he was like, my girlfriend, and he would mention that, and I so many times I kept turning to my boyfriend, and I was like, when was it ever discussed they were dating? Like, the time you see in the show is the time they've spent together. It's okay that they're, like, into each other and maybe even in love, but I'm like, they've never even dated. They've just been like, I like you too. Hi, how are you? Like, they've barely spent any time together and even had a discussion of what they are. I can understand being like, we're into each other, but that just made me laugh. The whole, like, my ex-girlfriend. I'm like, when were you asked? When did you ask her? Anyway, so she blows this puff of white smoke in his face and cruelly manipulates him into thinking that they were just there. She was talking about the grandfather dying from a stroke and even acts as if like they don't know each other. Kind of just totally motherfucking wipes his memory, which you're already like triggered hearing this, I know. You're like, wait, what? What is that bullshitness? But then we see a montage of the other werewolves. By the way, I forgot to mention this. Loved Lilith. Loved her. I want like a million other roles for that actress. Loved her little badass attitude. Loved her falling in love with Todd 2.0. Loved that whole thing. But anyways, erases all the werewolves' memories, basically. And they steal all the magical stuff the werewolves have been kind of collecting over time period and basically banning from the Order. So that's intense bullshit for multiple reasons. We're like, Alyssa's like walking away like oh, I'm so sad. I'm like, then why'd you do it, bitch? Like, okay. So on one hand, the general reason I'm assuming everyone's pissed is it kind of renders the first season null. Like, if none of the werewolves remember anything that happened, all that fighting, all that back and forth, all that saving, it kind of like didn't happen. And it almost is the equivalent of like, do you remember like it was like a weird tropey thing when I think it happened on like Dallas or something. They'll like back out and be like, all of it was the imagination of a child. And you're like, wait a minute, what the fuck? Like, I know technically if you felt something was real, then it was real, and that's all that really matters. But, like, when you talk to your average person who's trying to relax on a Friday night and watch a TV show, to say everything they spent 10 hours watching is basically doesn't exist, it didn't happen, it kind of feels like you wasted your fucking time, and it's like an insult, considering it's like, I already took a chance on your shitty fucking show that's poorly written and everything like that. Are you kidding me? So that already on itself is bullshit. But it does, to be fair, it does make sense with the way the Order works. Like, that makes sense that, like, I like that I didn't feel, I mean, they might have been alluding to it, but I didn't feel like Vera's going to be the next evil person. It just felt like, well, we're going back to the way we run things and we're secretive society. Of course, we want to have all the magical collection and take this back once we knew it existed. And of course, we don't want anyone involved, including the werewolves. Now that they do know the werewolves exist, that's kind of a huge fucking problem. I'm surprised they didn't murder them right then and there, but they erased their memory. So like that makes sense, but this is when it gets into like next level bullshit territory. So Alyssa's kind of put Jack through the proverbial ringer on like another level. I don't even know if I get a hula hoop, a huge thing. And she did one of the most bullshit thing ever to him. For all her defending that the Order is like a good organization, she did not give him any permission or anything. She totally took away his free will and stole away very, very, very important memories. She took away his memory that he talked to his mom, his dead mom. She took away his, like, memory and connection and, like, kind of last, months or weeks with his grandfather and even experiencing the death and everything. She took away their relationship, all of it. She's, like, having a moment, like, oh, I'm sad because you won't remember me. I'm like, bitch, you did a whole nother level of, like, evil. Just this one moment. But this is where it gets super fucked up and super bullshitty and just makes me be like, fuck your second season, fuck you for writing this show, fuck everything. So, he's still a werewolf. What the hell's gonna happen when he rages out? He only just got used to controlling his abilities as a werewolf. What's gonna happen when he just randomly turns into a werewolf? He has no idea what the nights are. He doesn't know what being a werewolf means, that he is a werewolf. I'm sure he's gonna be like, I have no memory of even being, like, attacked. You know how that's, like, kind of like the general folklore of how you become a werewolf? I don't even remember that. And he's going to just, like, murder people, probably not even in memory. He's just going to murder a ton of people until he, like, he's going to be so confused with too much power. That's a really, really big deal. And in addition to that, she took away his, like, we don't even know the extent of how much she took away, because when she explains to him, oh, you know, you were just telling me about your grandfather, like, we don't even know each other, and leaves, he ends, like, the last line of the show, he goes, who am I? Like, does Jack even know who the fuck he is? That's serious. She gave him, like, Alzheimer's. That's really fucking serious. Like, she just robbed a person of their sanity. And I'll add extra, Lilith, background story. Lilith, a big, fun, cool twist is she hates the Order. We learned she actually at one time was in the Order and was even friends with Alyssa. And she gets her memory back and is pissed at Alyssa for having taken her memories, and she has the reaction that I'm having now about Jack, and, like, if Jack knew she took away his memories. So she had her memories taken away again. Like, I mean, these people are, like, mentally, excuse me if I'm triggering you, but, like, mentally raping these people. It's fucking violating, and it kind of makes everything they did bullshit, and it's some really serious circumstances, but not in the way that I want to, like, find out what's going to happen, because you're just going to have some bullshit episodes of people being confused, and it's boring to watch. They already wrote themselves into a corner, I'm telling you that right fucking now. But it's more so that, you get what I'm saying. I don't think I need to explain it anymore. So that's, like, the big ending that's a huge problem, not just because of, like, to the bitter end, Alyssa was trying to defend Edward, and it got really fucking, like, crazy on another level, but that even in the end she's like, oh, I'm sad that we don't get to be together anymore. I'm like, no, back it up. Why don't you acknowledge what you actually really did, and the fact that everything you did is null void. So yeah, the Order is like a giant shit show. It's still kind of worth watching, but I don't know, at the same time I have, like, I'm raging talking about how it ended, and I'm kind of mad that I watched it. Not mad at you, Dan, though. Very happy I watched it. Dan, thank you for the suggestion. I'm glad I checked it out. But yeah, give me your opinions. Like I said, I have a Twitter, and I also have an email. You can check it in the link below. I love chatting with you guys and your opinions. Tell me what you think and what you thought. Did you watch it? How do you feel about the circumstance? What do you think is going to happen in season 2? Because, like, I don't know if I'm going to check out season 2 after that bullshit. Especially, like, what are they going to do? Finish season 2? Pull me in again? And be like, it was all the figment of a child's imagination. Like, wouldn't that be funny if every season it was, like, American Horror Story, where, like, American Horror Story is kind of, like, all connected and whatever. But the general trend is, like, it will suck you in. You totally forget anything bullshit's going to happen. And then in the last 5 minutes of every The Order this season, it's, like, some bullshit null void situation. And they have to rebuild the world all over again. But I can't even think or care what's going to happen the second season. But I am still curious, what do you think they're going to focus on? Is it going to be another, like, now that the Order knows the werewolves exist? The werewolves, like, how are they even going to get back their memory? They're werewolves, but they don't know they need to fight magic. You hear what I'm saying. Guys, if you liked this episode, it would do me a solid if you wrote a 5-star review on iTunes, subscribed on whatever platform you're listening to. I'm talking to you too, YouTube. And just give it a like and a heart. It really, really helps out, and I just appreciate it so much. I love you in the most platonic way possible. See you in the next episode.